Welcome back to Sword and Musket, our channel where we look at arms and armour and all the problems that they throw up. Anyway, we are revisiting the air rifle build because what I had not appreciated was that the customer was going to actually want to use the thing, didn't want to just look at it and put it on the wall as part of his collection, and a problem emerged in that it works perfectly well, it's fully functional, it's got a couple of weird quirks, but the geometry of the rifle had been changed, the angle of the butt is different, so we had to make some alterations. I shall explain. So basically we had altered the most fundamental geometrical setup of the rifle, in that the eyeball, the Mark 1 eyeball, has to be in line with the sights up here. But in making the merge between the Enfield back end and its two action rails and the bolt, bringing that down correctly over the wrist had changed the angle that the thing was presenting at. And if you remember in the previous video I talked about a slither of timber which I'd had to place in here to alter the angle, because in placing everything together there was a wedge shaped gap here that was wider at the top, so that forced the angle of the butt down. So you have that as the angle of the butt there, and the difference becomes visible when you see the straight along the top. So we have to reduce this. So to start off with, I went for almost kind of a standard Enfield fix, in that when you are shooting the rifle you had to raise your head, otherwise all your shots were landing way too high. So to raise the head I put on a cheek piece not dissimilar to the number 4 Enfield sniper cheek piece, and quite poetically I managed to scrounge up a bit of broken number 5 jungle carbine stock which had been horribly spauterized. And people say to me, why do you keep all these things? And, well, because I was able to cut the middle out of it and create this. So this allows the cheek to rest there and raises the eye. But that was not enough. We were still landing way too high in test firing. So the next area to look at was how low can we drop these sights. In fact, I did a test to make sure I'd got my basic geometry right, and I tried shooting it by raising the sights. No effect. It was all still going high. So what I did, or what we agreed to do, is I made the groove in the rear sight plate deeper. Tried that. Not enough. Then the screw that holds on the rear sight component was actually getting in the way. So I've ground through the middle of that and left a channel that you can see through. Then, believe it or not, with the sight that was still on the front, I was seeing too much of this. And we still weren't bringing it onto the target. So there was one more thing to do, and that was to raise the front sight. So after about 2 or 3 goes, I made this rather ugly shark fin type contraption built onto the original dovetail. This is actually attempt number 2, And at this point we have now got the shots going under the bullseye or just slightly over, so we're clustering around the bullseye. So I will now leave it to the customer to shoot, because he's a different shape to me, because God made us all in different shapes and sizes. He can see how he got on with it. And what we can do, if we have to, is remove some of that top sight to bring it down, to bring the rifle exactly onto target. But I'm quite pleased with where they're landing now. It has brought them onto target. All those different solutions have in fact finally solved the problem. Should have thought about it before, but got so entrenched with working on each problem as I went along, like the angles that had to be altered, the presentation as to what it would look like, and the bolt wasn't sticking out here. Last thing in the world I thought I was thinking about was accuracy, but we now have an incredibly accurate rifle, which I'm quite impressed with. It may look butt ugly, but we have solved the basic problem, and it came down to me not appreciating how much drop I built into this stock by getting it all to fit up right. I suppose if that wedge hadn't been shoved in, if that wedge hadn't been worked into the build, we would have had the butt at least halfway up, which would have possibly been the height of the cheek piece. So remember your rifle geometry and the basic results of sight, eye, line. Solutions included cheek piece, alteration of rear sight, and then finally rebuilding the front sight altogether. Now it may look, as I say, slightly cumbersome, but at a later date, as I say, we may take that down just to absolutely finalise it. When the customer's shot it for a while, got used to it with the cheek piece, got used to how it performs, decided what distance he's shooting at, then we can take that top part off. So that solved the problem. A little bit of brain ache, actual basic sighting finished it off. Join me again anytime, or have a look at any of the other videos where we talk about heritage, collectible, classic, interesting stuff. And there will be more builds and plenty more going on in the future. Remember, if you do want to read any of this, it is all visible on the website at www.buyswordandmusket.co.uk, where you can see other offers and rifles explained to the full. So click like and subscribe, and I'll see you again. Thanks for joining me.